How's it going, everyone? David from dodmedia. I want to answer a question that I get a lot. It's probably the most asked question when I'm using one of these Sigma lenses, the contemporary lenses. So that's the 16mm, the 30mm, and the 56mm. The question is, does this lens work on full frame? Can I put it on an A7 or an A9 body? And the answer is yes and no. So before I do any explaining whatsoever, this is the 16mm in Super 35 mode, in APS-C crop mode. And this is it in full frame mode. This is the 30mm in Super 35 crop sensor mode, and this is the 30mm in full frame mode. And this is the 56mm in Super 35 APS-C mode, and this is the 56mm in full frame mode. So why am I showing you this on a full frame camera in full frame mode? Well, there's a few reasons. First reason, these lenses are incredibly cheap for what they can offer. Second reason is that while there is a heavy vignetting, it's not even vignetting, it's just lack of projection into the corners of the sensor, these lenses are sharp as hell. And because they're designed to project onto a smaller sensor, they're going to be sharp as hell on a full frame camera as well. So let's quickly talk about that vignetting and why it's happening. Essentially, this lens is designed to project onto an APS-C sensor, which is 1.5 times smaller than a full frame sensor, than a 35mm sensor. Now, where a full frame lens would be designed to project a circle over the whole of the sensor, of the full frame 35mm sensor, that's wasted light when you crop down that sensor to an APS-C size. Not only is it wasted light, but it's also wasted clarity, which is why camera companies create these crop sensor lenses for crop sensor cameras. With Sony, it's E-mount instead of FE mount. With Nikon, it's DX instead of FX. With Canon, it's EFS instead of EF. And essentially what they're designed to do is, instead of projecting over a 35mm range as a full frame lens does, they'll project over an APS-C range, a Super 35mm range. Now, these lenses tend to be a bit cheaper because they require less glass and they require less precision in projecting over a wider area, which inversely means that they are sharper in that smaller area. Quite often you'll find that a full frame lens isn't quite as sharp as an APS-C lens if you're doing a side-by-side comparison at the same focal range. But then the drawback of that is that because it's projecting onto a smaller area, when you put it on a full frame, well, that area doesn't quite cover the full frame range, that 35mm sensor range, which is why you get that heavy vignetting and in fact sometimes actual light cropping. But does that make this unusable? Well, absolutely not, because I don't actually find that this vignetting is quite as bad as needing a 1.5 times crop, which is what you need to apply to get into Super 35 mode. As long as you're zooming in your image enough to remove those actual cropped areas, then the vignetting areas, well, that's a stylistic choice that you need to make if that's something you want. Otherwise, you just crop in a little bit more until you get that APS-C range. Or alternatively, you just use the APS-C mode that's on the full frame camera anyway, built in. You can even set it to automatic, so if you put this lens on there, it'll switch like that. So I hope this answers the question of, do these lenses work on full frame cameras? Yes, absolutely they work. Their autofocus is super fast, it's super precise, and you can get all three of these lenses for the price of one full frame Sony lens. So, you know, it's a great investment to make if you want more variety of focal ranges, even if you have to crop in a bit, rather than spending all that money on just one lens for full frame coverage. So there you go. I hope you found this useful. Give it a thumbs up if you liked what you saw, and leave a comment in the comment section to let me know how you would use these lenses on a full frame sensor. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.